All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would request you to give a warm welcome to the co-founder of Fee Money. This is a garage session by Sumit Gwalani. Give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Cool. Thanks for being here. The idea of this one was to make it completely informal. And the idea was, I'll just talk like 30 seconds about what Fi Money does and then take it to more question and answers. It's more about talking about my journey or any questions you might have through my journey across Google and here. So, quick background about myself. Spent 20 years across operating systems, security, and fintech products. 13 odd years at Google, building bunch of products from Chrome browser to Chromebooks to Android, and then Google Pay in India, and then now Fi Money. So that's sort of been my journey across both US and India, across fintech and non-tech. What I wanted to do here was just open this board for any questions you might have on startup, leadership, entrepreneurship, or anything you might have around fintech partnerships, and see if we can just make it like a discussion across the two rather than me sort of coming and talking about here for a long time. So anybody wants to kickstart on a question?
After the PPI bin fiasco, right, in the card space, how are banks warming up to cards right now?
I think there's been two things that have happened, right? There's the whole PPI stuff, and there's also the stuff around co-branding card guidelines, right? So I think from a bank's perspective, I think banks who want to do card partnerships still want to do card partnerships. I'm seeing at least 10, 15 banks who want to do still credit card partnerships across the board, right? So you're still seeing new players. If you just look at this thing, there have been at least 10 co-branding cards launched, either PPI or credit cards, just between yesterday and today at GFF, right? Everyone from, Federal Bank to many other banks who are sort of doing those partnerships. I think so far as you have a good proposition, there are banks out there to partner on that, right? I don't think there is a challenge, honestly. It does means you have to do a little bit more work than normal, but there are enough opportunities out there.
The regulatory overhang is largely over.
There's no overhang. There's more regulatory work that you need to ensure that your data is there, who has access to data, who doesn't have access to data. But can you build a system and launch quickly? Very sure possible.
Thanks.
Right, happy to discuss if you have any specific questions on how to do that. Cool. Folks, other questions? Okay. Anyone on question side? So I'll do this. I'll sort of talk about a story around. Oh, there was a question there. Did I? Huh? Okay. Is there a question or should I go to something else? No. Okay. I'll do something else on that side. There was an interesting story around. Somebody asked me just when I was walking out here in terms of like today, if I'm a fintech startup, how do I go to a bank and do a partnership on, right? And how do I make that happen? And I thought I'll take this as an opportunity to answer that question. See that person here in that sense, right? The key thing, what you want to do is, every bank out there is ready to partner today, right? You might think only the small banks are ready to partner or only one or two banks are ready to partner, but literally every bank is ready to partner. The key really to figure that out is, how do you realize what does that bank want, right? If it's a big bank, it's a medium-sized bank, it's a small finance bank, what do they really want? And identify what is the partnership that you will do. It has to be a win-win on both shapes, and if you can make that as a win-win on both shapes, then you will be able to get the partnerships, get that stuff that you want to do, right? You want something from the bank, but bank wants that in return. So identify the bank that actually helps with your business use case as a fintech, as a startup, and then ensure that you can sort of tag along that. Cool. Any other questions?
Hey Sumit, hi.
Hi.
So I visited the booth actually. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I actually visited the booth. So I see that you guys have a credit card, but what else do you have in store for us?
Okay, so the question here was, Fi Money has a credit card, but what else for a millennial, right? Actually, there's a bunch of other stuff. If you have the Fi debit card, it actually is a 0% Forex card out there, right? So if you're traveling internationally, it's sort of the best card to use out right now. The other thing is the salary program that's out there. So if you want your salary coming into FI, there are a whole bunch of benefits out there that you will get with the FI salary program as compared to anything else. Everything from 0% forex on your debit card to a bunch of benefits, cashback on UPI, and more importantly, just giving you a central place where you can get everything done. Right? I am not even going to benefits like insurance cover and other additions you get. But the idea is how do you look at all your overall collections and money at one place and ensure that the salary that you comes in helps you around where to save and where to invest. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, there's one question here. Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that you were in Google.
Yes.
And then, Google is a place where a lot of people go and just be.
Yes.
And what was the thought behind you to like?
Well, so I was there at Google at 13 years, 7 years in Mountain View, and then around 6-7 years in India. You're very right. It was a place where I could easily retire with a 9-to-5 job and not worry about something. But I think the mission that we started with, like Google Pay was to digitize payments in India. The next goal after digitizing payments in India was to digitize banking fully. And doing that in an MNC company like Google, where there are a bunch of overheads, when I have to do something with a regulatory mindset was going to be very hard. And so at the end of the day, if I had to digitize there and actually get into getting licenses and stuff, you had to do it from the outside. So that's the whole idea where FiMoney came in, where the idea to digitize banking across all fronts of banking, payments, investments, and lending had to be done outside. So that was it was a hard call, but that was the reason to leave Google.
Ladies and gentlemen, any other questions?
Any more questions?
Any more questions?
Cool. So what I'll do is I'll sort of just take 2 more minutes and reveal one more story around stuff, right? GPay had a very interesting story around do we partner with one bank or do we partner with multiple banks in UPI, right? And it's a story that I get asked quite often around. So what do? We had initially Axis Bank as a partner, and then the question was, do you just go and launch with Axis Bank or do you bring in multiple partners on board? And before launch, one of the key decisions we made was, if we launch, we'll make it a multi-bank model and not a single bank. There was no concept of a multi-bank model in UPI at that point of time. So we ended up securing partnerships with HDFC, ICICI, and SBI. So if you look at any of your Google Pay handles, you will see, OK Axis, OK ICICI, OK SBI, or OK HDFC Bank. And the reason to do this multi-bank partnership was, how do you ensure that, when you have a big MNC company partnering with some of the big banks in India, there's not a single center of focus. There is distribution across the play. And if any banks are having issues, how do you ensure that you distribute the accounts across the banks and not ensure that there is concentration just with one player? So we work closely with NPCI and RBI on that to come up with that multi-banking model that is now actually very common in UPI from most players doing that. But it was a sort of interesting story way back in 2017 summer when this actually came to Google Pay first doing it with other banks.
Hi, Sumit.
Hey.
Wanted to understand that as a user, sometimes it happens that, you're transacting and your transaction fails, and sometimes these can be pretty big value, like 20,000, 30,000. So if I'm using like an ICICI, I know that, whatever happens, at the end of the day, I can go to their branch and just figure something out. But with Fi, like, how do I know that? Like, how do I trust Fi? Because it's only an app.
No, great question, right? Like, we're all used to going to our branches, going to our branch manager, and that is what banking has meant to us, right? So for a digital player like Fi, what happens in case of a dispute, in case of a customer support? What do you do when your transaction has got stuck? And transaction can get stuck due to something in the infrastructure. Your recipient bank is down for whatever reasons, right? And how do you solve that? I think the way that Fi tries to build trust is also ensuring that One, on the app, our experience is great that helps you what to do in case your transaction is stuck, right? Hopefully, it's never stuck, and we sort of use some models to identify whether your recipient bank is down or not, and try to determine, if that is the case, warn you before the transaction happens. But even if that's not happening and your transaction does get stuck for any other reason, both having, a 24/7, both a call customer service in it. Folks in India don't like to chat. Like, if my money is stuck, the first thing I'll do is take the phone and give a call, right? Like, that is important. And you need to have that support to say that if my money is stuck, I don't want to go through 4 levels to figure out the phone number, figure out what happens. I should be able to give a call, have the confidence I can call. A human being will reach out and talk to me and say what is happening with my money and take care of it as soon as possible. And that's really our focus on customer experience for the end user, where whether it is be through the app or through our call center, are approachable in case anything gets stuck. But the real and the first goal is how do you minimize that in the first place? Because the idea is to not reach that state and reach it in as little as possible.
Hi. So just an extension to the last question that you were answering. So currently operating as a neobank. So do you see as it is part of a vision that you hold a license also, and why only restricting to the digital mode only? Why can't it be omni-channel? So if that's so how do you see bank support coming as a neobank disrupting?
No, so we love to call ourselves, we don't love to call ourselves a neobank. We love to call ourselves a financial hub rather than a neobank, because the goal goes to what our mission statement is, right? Our mission statement is maximizing people's financial potential. And if that is the case, how best can we do it? We can best do it by being at the center of their people's lives, and which means touching all aspects of their financial journey, which means banking, deposits, payments, investments, and lending, which is the things that you need, and insurance maybe, right? And so if you need all of this, how can we provide them the services through whichever partner is the best? So for example, you might be opening a bank account on FI through Federal Bank, but you could be taking a loan through another bank. They need not be the same. And how do we be that central financial hub for you to help you with the journey? Your investments could be on mutual funds, international stocks, Indian stocks, whatever. Being independent of the people out there. You don't want to, today's day and age where unbundling has happened, the reason unbundling has happened is people want the best of A from app A, the best of app from app B. What we are trying to do is bring that best to you in one place. Right? So we are not trying to bundle it all together that you get everything from FI or everything from Federal Bank. So far as we can help you connect all your data. One of the things that we also do is allow you to connect all your bank accounts, which means I have an HDFC bank account, I have an Axis bank account, I have a FI bank, Federal Bank account. How do I see all of that, the statement in one central place through account aggregator, then able to decide, okay, you know what, I want a loan from IDFC bank, I want a credit card from somebody else. How do I get everything at one place? And that's really the experience we want to give, because that we believe can create an impact in people's lives and ensure that your app journey feels more to the other apps out there. Think about, we like to say, like, can we be your Insta, Netflix, Snapchat, and that of banking, rather than saying, look at banking in an old way. It has to be personalized for each one. Today, me and my dad may have very different financial habits, but our banking apps are same. FI strives to ensure that your bank app is built for you and not for somebody. Personalized completely for you.
Hi, sir. So I just wanted to understand from, a job with Google, which was obviously a fairly stable job, as you mentioned, in terms from even a retirement perspective. But how has the entrepreneurial journey been for you from, being in Google and then starting your own organization?
Okay, so the question was, how do you move from a stable Google job to an entrepreneurial journey at FI Money, especially if I may add, having spent 13 years at Google. So I was a little bit lucky. At Google, I did 2 startups within Google. Chrome devices was my first startup when I was in Mountain View, where we built that from scratch as a separate product. Pays, which we then rebranded as Google Pay, was the second startup from scratch. So it was like 2 startups within Google. So I had got a bit of startup life, and in fact, I started my career in an early stage startup in LA where I was literally employee number 5. So I had a little bit more doors. But honestly, after being 13 years at Google, it was still a shocker. Every week you found something new that you're like, oh man, at Google, somebody else was taking care of that. Right? So it was definitely overall changing. I think what you had to do this was take back and reflect and, what are the startup strengths, right? You're trying to solve a mission. You really are passionate about that mission. And 2 is your agility to get there fast, to get there in the right way. What you bring in is your experience, what you have seen develop to develop at scale. How do you combine these 2 strengths, right? So at almost every aspect, you're working with something on policy, right? You don't have a policy person in your team, you have to do it yourself. But you then bank on your experience and get that. You have to do, business, you have to do tech. And how do you combine all of that with the agility becomes important. So I think that the real mantra for me has been like at every step, like, just reflecting back as like, how would we do it? I want to take the best of both worlds, the best of the startup world and the best of a big company world. So think of scale like a big company, but think of speed like a startup. And so it sort of has turned out well so far. Cool.
Sorry, so you mentioned a bunch of accounts earlier when you were talking, right? So it can be pretty overwhelming. I'm thinking like if I have to download the app and open a bank account. So is there a way for us to experience the app without opening a bank account?
Yes, so actually, thank you for that, right? Like at GFF, we are now, previously with FI, you had to open the federal savings account and then try out all this. Starting GFF, you can actually download the FI app. Just if you go to the FI booth and use the QR code, you can actually start connecting your other accounts without having to open a bank account. And you start looking at your net worth, analysis, insights, right away, right? So the requirement of a bank account is going away. Cool. Any other question? We are actually time up. So, thank you everyone. I'll be around in case there are any questions.